Hey everybody, I'm Zale Mednick and welcome to another episode of Preconceived. For most of human history, relationships have been defined by scarcity. Scarce attention, scarce understanding, scarce emotional availability. Love, by definition, required friction. It required another person with their own needs, limits, and the capacity to disappoint you. But for the first time, that's no longer the only option. Today, millions of people are forming emotional and sometimes romantic bonds with artificial intelligence. These aren't just tools. They listen, they remember, they affirm, they never ghost you, they never get tired, and they never ask you to change. So the question isn't whether these relationships are real. They clearly feel real. The question is what they're training us for. Are AI relationships a harmless extension of companionship in a lonely world? A therapeutic bridge for people who struggle with intimacy? Or are they rehearsals for connection without vulnerability? Relationships without risk? And if love no longer requires another human consciousness on the other side, what does that say about what we actually want from intimacy in the first place? Today I'm joined by Marnie to explore what happens when technology meets our deepest detachment needs, and whether connection without conflict ultimately brings us closer to ourselves or quietly pulls us away from each other. Marnie is a marriage and family therapist. She has a master's of social work and a doctorate in clinical psychology with a focus on couples therapy, interpersonal neurobiology. She has extensive training in relationship counseling, marriage and couples therapy, including discernment counseling for couples on the brink of divorce. She's a regular contributor and writer for HuffPo, About.com, the Gottman Institute, and Dr. Oz's Share Care, and a frequently quoted expert in the media. She's author of the self-help book titled Ghosted and Breadcrumbed: Stop Falling for Unavailable Men and Get Smart About Healthy Relationships. Marnie, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining me. All right, Marnie Feuerman, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You've been trying to connect for a while, and this is such an apt topic. And I realize as I was putting kind of some of my thoughts together, I've been doing a few episodes on AI over the past several months, not out of intention, but just because things keep on popping up in the news, or I'll read an interesting article because AI is increasingly becoming a part of our lives. And I encountered you because you were quoted in an article where you spoke about AI and romantic relationships. And that's not that's not necessarily your area of expertise. I don't think it's really anybody's area of expertise yet because it's such a new phenomenon.
Right, exactly. It's new and it's something that I think I've had to become aware of because anything relational is pretty much my wheelhouse. And I know that this is the reality that we're dealing with and that we're looking at, where people are seeking these types of quote relationships, even though, as I know we're going to talk about, it like, how is it real? How is it like a real relationship? How are people getting drawn into these types of situations? Is it helpful? Is it harmful? So when I started to be asked about it, I'm like, this is a really interesting new topic that I think is going to affect a lot of people and certainly affect people in my field that work with relationships and all of that. So yeah, so the Guardian, I think it was, reached out to me, and then I had another journalist in like a Greek magazine reach out also. So I think this is something that must be trending, and I'm happy to learn even more about it because it's fascinating to me too.
Marnie, I want to start off by kind of establishing what we're talking about here. Like when people hear about people, when people hear about the idea of creating or forming a romantic relationship with an AI, what exactly does that mean? I mean, a lot of us, I've started using ChatGPT more. I know some people who use it a lot and say like they just will sit down for an hour and have full conversations with ChatGPT to kind of deep dive into a topic. But is that what we're talking about with romantic relationships? What exactly is this phenomenon before we explore kind of some of the benefits and the harms of it?
Yeah, sure. So using something like ChatGPT to explore a subject or a topic or get information or general questions answered is a little different than what we're talking about with an AI relationship. So people are starting to use something like ChatGPT or another source, but they are developing emotional feelings for the AI chatbot. So even though it's what's called a parasocial relationship, which basically means a one-sided relationship. So people all along have had those at times, like with a newscaster, a celebrity, an influencer, where they would see that person in the media and they would feel like they had some type of relationship with them. But of course, there wasn't any reciprocity at all. But that would kind of make people feel good. We didn't really look at that as too problematic. Certainly, it could go into being like a delusional disorder, but for a very tiny percentage of the population. But most people would just see that news reporter every day and feel some comfort in it and would find it like soothing or comforting to get their news from that individual. Every single night. So this is sort of taking on a life of its own because an AI bot can mimic what seems like reciprocity or seems like connection or seems like emotion. And so people are developing some attachments or they think it's much more than it is. So they're not really seeing that this is a very one-sided relationship. So to go to AI just to gather information is one thing, but to go to AI as an emotional support, comfort, connection, that's where we're getting into a whole other area. So I believe that's really what we're talking about here and what there's so many implications that I know we're going to get into of having this as a source of your connection and your support in your life.
Would it be people kind of prompting the AI saying, I want to form a romantic relationship with you, respond in such a way that creates this relationship? Or is it more of an implicit thing where they just start using it, start relying on it more, and attraction, maybe that's the wrong word, but some form of romance develops?
I think it can happen in a lot of different ways. I think people can stumble into it, so they may not be going to AI to seek a romantic connection, but that somehow it turns into that. And then I do think there's some people that that is what they're going to it for. They know it's an easy way to have like a quote romantic partner, one that is always available, always reassuring, always validating, always there for them, very consistent. And so it could be, I think, a slippery slope in that regard. And then there's other people who are able to keep it really balanced and they know what it is. They don't read into it. They know it's one sided and they're maybe just having fun with it. But I do think there's a segment of the population where it can be a little more dangerous for them. They are using that to avoid real human connection. They're avoiding perhaps going to support system to get needs met. So again, it simulates the AI simulates connection and simulates all of this stuff, but in reality, it's not in any way like a real relationship. It doesn't have the true depth, even if it could imitate what emotions look like. They don't have emotions. It's essentially a robot that somebody's dealing with.
It's a weird question to ask, but does sexuality ever factor into these relationships? And obviously that would be one side, but have you seen people who are kind of masturbating, I guess, to thinking about the AI or while they're speaking with the AI?
I totally think it could turn into that for some people, absolutely. I think if you're starting conversations and you're wanting something like sexual conversations back from the robot, they're going to give that to you. They're going to give you whatever you are asking for, and that's what people have to remember.
How common is this? I mean, I don't know if there's stats or data out there yet. Again, it's so new. But some people listening to this might be thinking, really interesting, but like, nah, I don't know people doing that. On the other hand, you might be surprised. I mean, I did an episode on BDSM a couple months ago, and I think people were surprised at just how common that is. And this seems like the accessibility is so easy that it probably would be more common than a lot of us think.
Exactly. I think it's more common than people think, and people aren't necessarily admitting or advertising that they're doing this. I don't know stats yet. I'm sure that there's some that are gonna come out, but I also know there's been other literature out there interviewing people who do this, and I don't think it was that hard to find people. So this is definitely happening. Um, I think we're getting into a zone that is just uncharted territory, and we know that it can certainly affect people's mental health. And then, of course, it's a deep concern of mine because these machines, they're not always acting ethically. They're not always promoting that someone do something different. Like the machine isn't going to say, sounds like you have some things that you need to talk about with a parent or a real relationship. Here's some strategies to help you go talk to a parent or talk to that teacher or talk to your boss. Or it's not going to pivot like that the way with a human coach or therapist or even a friend might. So it's going to just pretty much do what you're asking it to do, and it's gonna follow along. And unfortunately, it may prompt you to do something that might even be dangerous.
Yeah, anybody who uses ChatGPT knows you can just tell it, no, talk in this tone, be more direct.
It's gonna do
You
it.
can really get it to tell you what you want it to tell you.
Yes.
In your book, Ghosted and Breadcrumbed, you focus on how people navigate being involved with unavailable and emotionally distant partners. In many ways, AI kind of represents the remedy to those relationship issues. There doesn't have to be emotional distance because you can go to the AI whenever you want. They're available whenever you want. Uh, it fills the voids. There's no conflict, full attention. What do you think? Is there some advantage to using AI here to supplement uh, elements of our lives, or does that supplementation cause the other problem to just grow? If we start using AI to help fill the voids, are we then accepting that, okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe I won't put as much effort into my relationship because it's okay. AI will supplement it. And maybe some could argue that's a good thing.
Yeah, so I think AI can certainly provide like a sense of companionship and the reassurance and emotional expression without judgment. So it might feel comforting for someone who maybe they've experienced rejection in their life or inconsistency with other people or trying to have real romantic partners. However, we have to remember it's not genuine reciprocity. It's not going to promote emotional growth or mutual back and forth vulnerability. So in my book, of course, I'm always emphasizing that in order to have meaningful and healthy relationships, you have to have that reciprocity. You have to be challenged a bit. You have to take risks in being vulnerable. So I think to temporarily soothe somebody, it may not be, the worst idea. I think there's a lot of context that we have to consider when we're looking at this kind of thing. Um, but if it's not healthy, you learn to navigate real relationships at some point. I think it's hugely problematic. So I almost look at it like people have strategies all the time for soothing, right? And to feel comfort or to feel supported. And ideally, if we can co-regulate pretty well with a partner, that's a healthy relationship. So if you think about it in this way, where if I'm feeling, let's say, anxious, and instead of going to my partner, I go to this AI robot and I'm getting whatever I need. And then I never really talk to my partner about it. I never really share or say, you know what, I need a hug right now. Or is it okay if I vent to you because I'm having a bad day? So I'm taking that emotional energy and I'm putting it elsewhere. It's going to create a barrier to your intimacy and your connection with a real human. So we have to remember that. So I think small doses, right? Or even if someone's going to it to get ideas, I'm anxious. How do I speak to my boyfriend or girlfriend about that? What should I say? Or how I want to drill down why I'm anxious so that I can then go speak with my person. So how it's used, you could see is so critical. But if that's my main strategy to deal with my emotional world, it's going to create nothing but a barrier to intimacy with my partner.
That's right.